A climate-based analysis called Aquanomics was released on Monday. It is estimating that floods, droughts, and major storms that wash out highways, damage buildings, and affect power grids could cost the Canadian economy $139 billion over the next 30 years. The report is by global engineering and architecture services firm GHD, and it takes into account the loss of economic productivity, the shocks to the system when it comes to supply chain prices. The report predicts that manufacturing and distribution will take the biggest hit from water-related climate disasters. It is warning governments and businesses that they need to become more resilient and use data systems and sensors to help predict problems. Well, with us now to talk more on this is Ms. Zuliana Mawani, Water and Wastewater Operations Lead for GHD in Canada. Ma'am, welcome to Forum Daily.
Thanks for having me.
So we gave a brief overview in our intro, but what would you say are the major findings of this study?
So the major findings were that droughts, floods, and storms could result in huge losses over in excess of $100 billion to the Canadian GDP. We're looking between 2022 and 2050. So that's about 0.2% per annum in the five major sectors that we looked at. Flooding alone, we're saying, will cost the Canadian economy $30 billion in the years leading up to 2050 and makes up most of the direct loss.
Some very concerning numbers there. So tell us a little bit more about why GHD decided to conduct this survey in the first place.
Well, we all know that we're seeing and continue to see the impacts of climate change and water-related impacts in particular. We saw the direct impacts of flooding last year in the Pacific Northwest. And aside from displacing people and direct damage to infrastructure, there's also the major impact to transportation corridors and shipping routes. And I'm sure many of us wondered what the overall economic impact was. With Aquanomics, we really wanted to take a step further to look at the overall impact to our economy.
And can you tell us a little bit more about that for some perspective and clarity for our viewers? Tell us a little bit more about how water-related disasters can impact the economy in terms of cost.
Sure. So we looked at five major sectors. So agriculture, banking and insurance, energy and utility, and fast-moving consumer goods and retail. And then as you mentioned, the largest impact that we were seeing is from manufacturing and distribution. So that's where I'll start. So of the nine countries that we looked at, we found that $4.2 trillion in losses by 2050 are expected in just this sector alone. And if you think about it, direct impacts to the manufacturing and distribution sector would be, water scarcity restricts industrial production processes. Flooding and storms can damage assets and energy production. And then we have our indirect impacts, which is really the crux of the Aquanomics report. When you think about distribution of goods, drought interrupts waterborne transportation. And we're seeing this in Europe right now at the Rhine River, where water levels are impacting shipping routes. Floodings and storms can impact road and rail trans infrastructure, as we saw last fall in Vancouver, where torrential rain in BC triggered major floodings and shutdowns.
All right, ma'am, just about 2 minutes left here. So let's talk about the solutions. So the report is urging governments and businesses to become more resilient. What would that look like?
So three areas where the solutions need to be focused. So we need to adapt, so that's building future resilience into new projects. We need to optimize, so get the most out of the infrastructure we have today. And then we need to prioritize, and predictability comes with that.
All right, and tell us a little bit more about these data systems and sensors to help predict these problems. How would they help in this situation?
So it comes with the prioritized piece. So it helps us, smart devices and sensors allow utilities to monitor resilience within the system in real time. So then they can focus their attention where it needs to be focused, to prioritize efforts and be ready when the time comes.
All right, Ms. Mawani, what would you say is this report's biggest message or takeaway here?
I think the biggest message that we can take away is that, we're all seeing and will continue to see the impacts of climate change. By adapting, optimizing, and prioritizing resiliency in our infrastructure, we can be prepared.
And where can our viewers go to learn a little bit more about this study?
You can go to aquanomics.ghd.com.
All right, Ms. Zuliana Mawani, thank you again for your time today.
Thanks.
Stay with us. Forum Daily will be back shortly after the break, where we'll take a look at the major news stories and headlines happening around the world. Forces from Ukraine and Russia clash. Iraq is shaken by deadly protests. Desperately needed grain finally arrives in East Africa amid drought and hunger. And consumer confidence rises in the United States. So stay tuned to Forum Daily. We'll be right back after a short break.